Hello and welcome. We're coming to you live from Istanbul, overlooking the Bosphorus Strait, which separates Europe from Asia, or joins them depending on how you see it. Turkey's diverse population finds itself at something of a crossroads as it waits accession to the European Union. There are signs of improved relations with neighboring Armenia, in spite of historic tensions, and now Turkey's Kurdish population is looking for greater recognition and rights. The Kurds make up about a fifth of the country's 72 million people, but the language is banned in the education system, and demands for an autonomous region have been firmly rejected by Ankara. In a sign of reconciliation, the ruling AK party has been reaching out to the Kurdish community, but critics say it was a failed election ploy and that the AKP still lost heavily in local elections in the southeastern region of the country recently. Well, does this mean that the hawks in the government will look to a harder line against Kurds demanding more rights, or will the path of inclusion and engagement continue? On today's show, we examine life for Turkey's Kurds and ask, what will it take for a resolution to what is often described as the Kurdish problem? Remember, you can join our conversation with your questions and comments. You can log on to livestation.com/AJE and enter the chat room to take part. And we, of course, welcome your phone calls on the show as well. Well, joining me now is Özden Sanberk, Turkey's former Deputy Foreign Minister who served as Turkey's ambassador to the UK. Also with me is Amberin Zaman, a correspondent for The Economist based here in Turkey. She is a regular contributor to The Washington Post, The Los Angeles Times and The Daily Telegraph. And Nazmi Gur is Secretary General for the Human Rights Association here in Turkey and former Vice President of the pro-Kurdish Democratic People's Party. I welcome you all to the show. Welcome. Nazmi Gur, if I could start with you and ask, how encouraged are you by the outreach of the government to try to improve the situation for Kurds in Turkey?
Well, I think the AKP government has lost lots of opportunities during the accession to European Union in order to solve Kurdish question. Since 2 years, they absolutely stopped the reforms, and they have just make some window dresses like Kurdish TV channel 6, or as the Kurds say, Kanal 6. This kind of changes, as they made, considered by the Kurds as a window dresses,
so what's
not really
missing?
fundamental changes.
What could be the most direct move now then by the government to appease what you're saying here?
Well, I think that's very easy. First of all, they should recognize the rights of the Kurds and the Kurdish identity, and also the government should make all necessary fundamental legal reforms, including constitutional reforms that which provide really democratic guarantees for the rights of the Kurdish people as well as the other minorities in Turkey.
Ambassador Sanberk, in fact, the benefits and reforms that the Kurds do get are unregistered, so to speak, which means that it leaves many Kurds nervous that perhaps the government isn't necessarily sincere, or at least that these reforms might not last. What good guarantees do they have?
Well, first of all, let me say that well, I don't speak for the government. Let's make it clear. And I think it would be better to look at the outcome of the last local elections, because it's very important. When we talk about Kurds, we must understand whom do you mean by Kurds. I mean, the only Kurds in Turkey are not those engaged in bloodthirsty uprising against a parliamentary democracy. The Kurds are part of the government, part of the judiciary, part of the parliament, part of the economic life of the country. I don't believe that there is any right denied to Kurds in Turkey, and their identity are fully recognized, because in Turkey we don't have an ethnic constitution. A constitution is not based on ethnicity, but on the civic rights. So when I say the civic identity, that means it is beyond your linguistic particularism, ethnic particularism, or religious particularism. So I don't think that there is any sort of discrimination against Kurds in Turkey. But let me finish, which is very important. When you talk about the rights for the Kurds, maybe we must elaborate on it, because when it comes to DTP, DTP is a party which proposes an alternative identity for the Turkish citizens, and which is not shared by all the Kurds. Look at the recent, last election's outcome. The DTP scored some advances in the last local elections, but DTP by no means swept the southeast, and by no means has a majority in across Turkey. They got only 2.2 million votes out of 15 millions of Kurds. That means the overwhelming majority of Kurds in Turkey, they want to share their destiny with the rest of the country. Okay. So we don't, it's hard for me to understand what is the identity right which is not recognized for the Kurds.
We'll try, Ambassador, to get onto some of those issues and perhaps delve more into what you're saying. But Amber Zaman, I mean, you've heard both sides of this now.
Yes.
And I wonder, certainly from a media perspective, is it something that's debated widely enough to get a comprehensive public debate going on the subject?
Well, certainly in recent years more so, but unfortunately we still have laws that prescribe free debate of the Kurdish issue. In fact, we just had a member of parliament from the ruling party coming under investigation for saying that we can't solve the Kurdish problem, unless, you know, we take the DTP, this gentleman's party, and the PKK, the armed rebel group that's been fighting for initially independence, now autonomy, since 1984 into account. So he's being accused of propagating terrorism. So there are all these sort of contradictions in the law, in the practice. But what I can say, as a journalist who's been covering this country since 1992, my baptism of fire came with the Kurdish New Year celebrations in a small town in the southeast called Jazeera. Over 100 people were killed during those demonstrations. Though in those days I could not walk on the streets at night for fear that I might be shot, that many of my colleagues, journalists, were killed. Thousands of people disappeared. Today in Turkey, the bones of these people who disappeared are being dug up. This is being debated in the press. The whole legacy of this very bloody war that took place, in which the armed forces acted with great impunity, all of this is now finally being debated. So I am very hopeful that we are actually moving forward. There's no doubt about that.
Nazmi, let me put to you what Ambassador Sandberg was saying, that the sort of desire of the Kurds for greater autonomy is perhaps a marginal aspect of the community, and that the majority perhaps is more interested in a more integral relationship with the rest of Turkey.
Well, I don't agree with all this, because as a Kurd, since the establishment of Turkish Republic, the Kurds are discriminated and denied. All the names of Kurdish geography, names of mountains, of rivers, of village, towns, provinces, has been changed. This is one of the concrete evidence that how really the Republic put pressure on Kurds. On the other hand, the Kurdish language has been for decades, and Kurdish culture and history non-recognized. So DTP, by this last election, really got a victory. In Diyarbakir, we have got 65% of the votes. In Hakkari, we have got 80% of the votes. In Van, we have got approximately 54 votes, percent of the votes. There, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Erdogan, gave really strong nationalistic messages to the Kurds. For example, in Hakkari, he said, one nation, one flag, one country. This kind of monopolistic policies, the Kurdish population really react against it.
Okay.
In Hakkari, for example, 100% of the Hakkaris Kurds, they said, love or leave.
I'm going to, Ambassador, I'll let you get into this in just a second. We have a caller from Somalia on the line. I just want to bring that viewer question in. Caller in Somalia, what would you like to ask?
Yeah, my question is the Kurd problem. Does it have any economical aspects? Are there any natural resources in this area, particularly where the Kurds are living? because that's the root problem of all the conflicts in Africa, is the distribution of the economical benefits of the areas. So my question is, are there any economical aspects in this conflict between Turks and Kurds?
Okay, good. I'm going to put this to Nazmi Gur, actually, and then, Ambassador, I'll get you a response. The caller is asking, is there some kind of economic benefit to the Kurdish area that is being denied? That, you know, in Africa, for example, the wars are fought over resources, or at least the political alignment goes. Is there something the Kurds have that... The
Kurdish region, as we sometimes call Kurdistan, or now officially when we said Southeast Turkey, is completely underdeveloped parts of Turkey. And there's no really such a development programs, special programs to this region to develop economic and social life.
So no natural resources and such that you're...
No.
Okay, all right. Ambassador, I'm going to get your response in just a second. We do have to take a break at this point. As we do, let me remind you, you can be part of the discussion by logging on to livestation.com and entering the chat room. You can see there's a debate taking place there right now. As we leave you, here are some thoughts from the streets of Istanbul on this issue, and we'll be right back.
The Kurdish issue is getting better now. In the past, you could get a life sentence for just having a Kurdish music cassette. But now you can hear Kurdish music even on the most central streets of Istanbul. It's getting better.
I've been living in Istanbul for 28 years. Because I don't speak Turkish, I face a lot of difficulties when I go to a hospital, my children's school, anywhere in the city. We want our identity and we want our language. We too want to be free everywhere in the world. The Turkish government is killing us just because we are Kurdish.
They persecute us non-stop everywhere. They beat us and our children. Where is justice? Why aren't we treated equally? We are poor people. We are like brothers, Turks and Kurds. They say we are brothers, but they stab us in the back.